So I did warn you, tonight will be a slightly more creative planting than yesterday, and so to start with, we're going to be planting something that might be a little bit contentious as a tree. So this is Portulacaria afra, which you might know as jade bush. Jade bush does also refer to a much smaller succulent, but this one can, in the right conditions, get to 4 or 5 meters, and I will be encouraging it up to at least 3 meters tall, so it gets a canopy that I can actually walk under, which is more or less the closest I've come to a sort of stable definition of tree for this planting. To avoid confusion with jade bush, it's also known as speckboom in Afrikaans, and speckboom means pork tree. The pork part is because it can be used to flavour pork dishes. It's also supposed to be quite good for people like me who don't eat pork, for flavouring tomato dishes. It adds a little sort of tartness and also brings out the flavour of a lot of the other spices. So I will be experimenting with that when no one else is around to suffer my cooking. But for now, we'll just be using it as a windbreak for our little quince tree, which is going to be just northwest of this. As this is a member of Crassulaceae, calincos aren't the best in the way of toxic bearers, so we're going to be using a Senecio de Carya, which is one of the Madagascan sort of succulent relatives of ragwort. After that, we're going to be putting in an aloe jucunda, which is a little Somalian aloe, which hopefully we're sufficiently well drained in this spot that it should be alright here. They're usually quite slow directly in the soil. They tend to grow a lot faster in pots. As far as I know, this is cliff dwelling in its natural habitat, so it really does like some drainage. So being on sand is quite good if you're going to be planting out. Really do not plant it out if you're on clay. Keep it in a pot. And then finally we are going to be putting a calico, just for interest. This is the donkey's ears calico. I will be putting the proper name of that up on screen because I have forgotten it right now. It's quite a nice low-growing calico, and so as this is a fairly open area, it doesn't get much in the way of grassy growth, this should do fine here, and they tend to root from the tips of the leaves, which is always quite ornamental and quite striking to see. So for part 2 of tonight's planting, I'm going to be going with something without too much in the way of invasive roots because we're going to be planting next to a borehole, and I really don't want something like a fig that would be sending roots in there, strangling up the pipes and making everything not work. So instead we are going to be going with a Dracaena studneri, which has pre-rooted finally in its bag. It hasn't rooted as much as would be ideal for getting the soil out with it, but because it is pre-rooted, they do seem to be a little bit more sturdy against the mole rats once pre-rooted, so I'm not worrying so much about putting rocks in around the base of this. I will be accompanying that with a couple of plants that are also theoretically pre-rooted. So first off, we've got one of the pig's ears, Cotyledon barbae, I think, which has pre-rooted, but only very, very slightly in the 3 weeks, I think, that it's been in this pot. They're much, much faster when it's warmer, but it is quite chilly at the moment, even if tonight is a relatively warm night for this time of year. And then we've got a piece of Aloe cameroni. This clump had just finished flowering, and I noticed that this piece had a couple of roots above the ground, so hopefully that will help it get a little bit more established at this time of year, when the ground might not be its most hospitable. Right, so that should be it for tonight. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you have enjoyed it. Please tune in again tomorrow. I will be planting something else home propagated. Maybe later in the week I will get a little bit more exciting because I will be going into town, but we'll see.